years as a state official. I was Attorney General in Lagos. And we did a lot of work in terms of litigation, in trying to find autonomy for the states. So by and large, I mean, for example, look at the whole, what they call fiscal restructuring. We said that a state government should be able to keep as much of what it makes as possible. The problem we've always had is not so much the restructuring. It is more the fact that there is oil, there is money to be shared. When there was oil and plenty of it, we went to court, and I'll give you an example. We went to court saying, let's have fiscal autonomy. Let every state keep its money. This was the so-called resource control case and all of that. Several states refused to back Lagos State's call at that time. In fact, practically every state, except 4 states, agreed that there should be fiscal restructuring. Everybody else disagreed, said no. We said, okay, VAT. We also went to court on VAT. We said, hey, look, let everyone keep the VAT. It was widely opposed by most states. So you see, even this call for restructuring, sometimes, you find that there's very little sincerity around it. Even a lot of the senators that are talking about restructuring and all of that. I mean, the question is, when the rubber really hits the road, how many people are really going to be able to stand up and say, let's have complete autonomy of the states? I'm one for saying that as much as possible, states should have autonomy in the sense that they should at least provide their own income, make their own money. Every state at the moment is perfectly entitled to do so. Say, for example, a state decided to go into manufacturing today, or a state decided to go into agriculture in the way that some states have done. An agribusiness is huge potential. You can employ so many people, and states keep personal income tax. If you produce more VAT, you get a better share of VAT. So there's a lot that states can do at the moment. Unfortunately, we've all sort of grown up on this oil every month. We share some money and all of that. Now that is thinning out, I don't even think you need to tell anyone about trying to make more money. I think everyone is now sitting down in the various state houses across Nigeria, thinking how we're going to make a bit more money to be able to fulfill our promises to the people.
Restructuring means different things to different people. You don't sit on a table. You need to, first of all, establish, a common basis, understanding what is it we are going to restructure, and how do you proceed in doing that. Maybe the certain agitations to do with certain forms of restructuring. By the time Nigerians are able to sit down together, they may find out that no, maybe that is not what is required now. Maybe these particular things, set of things are the kind of restructuring that are required. But leaders should not assume that they know it all and decide for people what kind of restructuring the people require. It's important, we listen to the people, we sit down with them, and so that we establish a common basis of the kind of restructuring that Nigeria requires at this time, and the time frame for the implementation of whatever we may agree to, and Nigeria will be better off rather than saying no, yes, no, yes will not take us anywhere.
Welcome back. You are watching The Core, coming to you live from Channels Television Studios in Abuja, Nigeria. And we're talking about Biafra and whether it is a metaphor for restructuring. Now, during the break, we saw the acting president, Professor Shibanjo, there talking about his efforts in as Attorney General in Lagos State to push the agenda for restructuring. We also saw Senator McAfee talking about the reasons why we need to restructure in this country. And in the studio, we were indeed trying to grapple with what restructuring actually means. And we ended with Celestine, who represents the Ogoni people, who are a minority in the South. And I'd like to go to someone who represents, I guess, the minority in the North, who sometimes don't get a look in. What is your view regarding all the agitation that is going on? And please, if you could tell us who you are and the area you come from as you answer that.
I'm Solomon Ewuga. I used to be the Deputy Governor of Nasarawa State. I was a minister in FCT before I became senator. That's the privilege Nigeria gave me. I was born in Lagos, but I come from Nasarawa State. My father-in-law was the first Secretary General of the United Middle Belt Congress, late Patrick Doherty. And his own position, which some of us was the fact that they wanted a Middle Belt region, not exclusive of the North. He had a brilliant relationship with the late Sardauna. They never disagreed personally, but they disagreed on principle. As long as the Northern Middle Belt Congress was not created, a Middle Belt region was not created, he disagreed. He was offered parliamentary secretary a couple of times, but he stuck to his principle. So what am I saying? Whatever Nigeria restructured that does not capture the essence of people's living, there's a deformity. And this deformity affects us in various ways. I always, being a student of contemporary politics, gives me room to draw from the qualities other people did. Even the German Federation was unitary in terms of people. They decided to create what they call, from a Gemeinschaft, they defined a society in terms of community.
Thank you.
The community associated through a Gesellschaft to create a nation. That is the way they defined their country. How do we define our country?
Thank you.
In terms of the way we live and orient our thinking towards Nigeria. My professor in political science in UI, Professor Dudley, wrote a book, The Politics and Instability in Northern Nigeria, where he used it to define the politics of Nigeria. And interestingly, all politics that started in the first generation started in Jos because of the cosmopolitan nature. When I was a student, we went to do a research in Ibadan. And the question was, who are you? Are you a Nigerian or a Yoruba? First. The Yorubas felt they were pure Yorubas, but they thought that the quality of Nigeria made them better people. That was our finding when we went to local communities. So I want to reason like the Yoruba man I met in UI in the 70s, that he is a Yoruba man belonging to Nigeria. That is the way we reason when we are in, we believe we are minorities,
okay,
but we are not taken along in the larger configuration of what Nigeria presents as qualitative population. That is our general belief.
Okay, and I think by and large, and I'd like the mic to move along while I'm asking this next question. No, this way, please. This way, that way, yes. Thank you. I think we can reach a consensus that, not by design, but somehow we've ended up with people in this audience for whom I think we can say generally Nigeria has worked for. You know, we've sort of been, beneficiaries of this place called Nigeria. But the question is, again, in trying to put together a place that has political stability and where economically it works for everybody, the elites, the minorities, the ones that are not minorities, everybody. We have to go back to that first question. First, how do you build that national identity? And second, what do you do in terms of if you're restructuring, where do you start? So real practical questions.
My name is Sam Omashaye. I'm a columnist with the Nation newspaper. I just want to take us back in history, and I align with Odia Ofemi what he has said, because without memory we are nothing. I mean, if we don't remember where we came from before we go to this studio, we won't know where to proceed when we leave. It is that important. I want to go back to the narrative that has been left out. That is the importance of the center. We forget that before the Civil War, the Southeast was dominant in the central government in terms of the parastatals and all of that. We tend to forget that when Chief Obafemi Awolowo was done as premier in the Western region, he decided it was time to go to the center. Why was the center that lucrative why was the center